That's my position.
I mean, let's make it simple. Ford, what did Ford do? Ford paid down their debt, and outside the country, they sold off their inventory by offering employee discounts, the same thing that they give their employees. So if you're in Mexico City or in Frankfurt, you could buy an SUV, an Explorer. Instead of paying $32,000, you paid $24,800. And they cleared all their inventory and increased their cash flow. In the United States, they started doing the same thing 3 or 4 months ago. This is what the other guys should have done, too.
Yeah. Robbie,
poor management.
Robbie, I'm going to ask you to take over for a few minutes. I've got to make a call to the communications company to make sure we don't lose phones here. So if you would, sir.
No problem.
Well, I've always wanted to talk to a young man from Bulawayo.
But, Bob, just getting back on your thesis there, I mean, obviously this was a plan designed more to save UAW than it was to save an auto company. I mean, that's what it boils down to, right?
Absolutely no question. But, you know, in the beginning, nobody should have been saved.
Exactly.
And that includes J.P. Morgan Chase and Citigroup and Goldman Sachs and all those insurance companies that are in serious trouble, General Electric, the U.S. Treasury. They're selling paper, they're selling bonds to the Federal Reserve that doesn't have any money to buy them. So the Federal Reserve creates the money by making a bookkeeping entry, debit my book and credit your book. You're being the U.S. Treasury. And you can't run a country like that by making up money out of thin air. And it's extremely inflationary because it's immediately monetized. And not only that, they started with $300 billion, incidentally. They're going to buy $800, or they maybe already have, $800 billion worth of toxic waste. These are bonds that are made up of mortgages. And I don't know what they're paying for them because it's a state secret, but my guess is they're probably paying 75 or 80 cents on the dollar, and they're worth 10 or 20 cents. And guess who gets to pay for it?
Yeah.
The American tax slave.
I know. I mean, it's obviously the reason that you are hearing a number of comments right now that we are dealing with a reflation trade, although Ben Bernanke today stated categorically that he has the powers of Superman to withdraw credit at exactly the right time before inflation does become a problem. But today you saw gold test those upper bands. Unfortunately, it hit the resistance at 916 and backed off a bit. But it looks like...
They took it apart toward the end, and then in the access market, I saw it spike a minus $9 and come back to a minus 3. I don't know what it's doing right now, but I see April closed 890, 840 off 380. What did spot do?
Spot 896.90 or 730.
Well, that's a normal spread, because one of them is the outside month.
And silver.
The access market is that it's all over the place, and you know when you see plunges like that in the access market, you know darn right well the government's in there.
Oh, sure. Oh, I mean, we know this is a fact. We've spoken about this many times. Gold is the canary in the mine shaft. And it's the barometer that the government uses, and they know if they lose control of gold, it sends obviously exactly the opposite signal that they're trying to send.
Well, you know, Robbie, what I noticed here.
We got a break coming. We got a break coming up, Bob. Let's take the break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, folks, we are back, and I think we cleared up our phone problem. Do we have Mr. Chapman?
No, you do not.
Oh, you sound better than good.
Thank you.
Or is that gooder than bad?
No, I'm better than bad.
All right, that is much clearer. I'll tell you what, we've got calls here. Let's roll the calls. Manny, I don't have a screen, so first caller, go ahead. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
Hi, John. This is Bill from Indiana. It's a pleasure to talk to you gentlemen today.
Hi.
And not wanting to sound like a teacher's pet or anything, John, but I did do the assigned readings for today.
Okay.
And I do have 2 questions at least, please, for the Honorable Bob Chapman.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, Bob, hi. First, could you please elaborate on what Project Turquoise is? It sounds like a mirror image to the market where only the luminous can trade in it, but I'm just not sure how that works. That was on page 5 of this International Forecaster. And then on page 7, you talk about, this is a quote from the 3rd paragraph, there will be a window of opportunity where you can protect your wealth with gold and silver, and then use that wealth to get out of debt and acquire those items you will need to protect yourself from their plans for world domination. In there, are you saying, Bob, that we should get all the way out of gold and silver at some point, or are you saying something less? I'll hang up. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, the second part, what I mean is that, and it goes unsaid, that you should be preparing yourself with your insurance policy, which is dehydrated and freeze-dried foods in a filter and gold and silver coins. What I meant by that was later on, if we all survive this thing, your gold will have held its value when everything else went down perhaps 60 to 95%. And so you're going to be in a position to use gold to do other things, maybe start up a business, start up a factory, buy into a company, to do your own business, even buy real estate. We don't know, but you'll be able to do other things if you've got gold. To answer the first part of the question, the Bacal as well as the turquoise, 2 systems that they use. And those systems are to keep their trades secret for at least a period of time. They being the illuminists who run the major brokerage firms and banks throughout the world. And they're trading with each other and sometimes others, hedge funds, institutions, and pension funds, who come to them and they don't want their trades to be seen. Maybe later on it's okay, but they don't want them to be seen now. And so CalPERS might call up Turquoise and say, look, I want to sell 1 million shares of Microsoft. And the buyers within the group, and there's about 40 of them that make markets in secret. And they might absorb the whole thing collectively. They might call around and talk to one another and say, look, I got an order for a sale of 1 million shares of Microsoft. Can you take any? And this is the price, which is usually below the market. And the first guy calls and says, gee, I'll take 100,000. And the next guy says, no, I'm not interested. And that's how they work that. But that is not published until the figures are turned in, which might be a week or 2 or a month later. And so what they're doing is they're hiding their trades. And it stinks. It's nothing but corruption. And that's the way the exchange in America, exchanges in America operated over 100 years ago. In Europe, they only switched over in 1985. They had a secret system up until they were forced to use transparency. And so that's what they're all about.
You know, Robbie, did you see this by Jeff Clark, the editor of Big Gold? Banner, gold isn't going to 2,000 an ounce. But as you read through his article, and he goes into, and Bob, you would recognize this, the gold Dow ratio. The ratio is about 1 when the gold peaked in 1980. And I think gold went up to about $9.50 an ounce, meaning the Dow and gold were the same price. To restore that relationship at today's stock prices would mean when the Dow is at 66.26, gold should be at 66.26 an ounce.
Yep.
In other words, $6,626.
Absolutely.
And
it would be if our government was manipulating it.
Yeah.